Hello, welcome to the North Bank podcast, where I'm your host Holly, and I'm joined by Stef. How you doing, fella?
Yeah, I'm all right. Coughing like a coal miner still, but
This is the post Nottingham Forest Reacto pod, and a 0-0 draw.
Better than we
feeling?
predicted.
It certainly is. Yeah, for the record, I predicted a 3-0 defeat, and you predicted a 2-0 defeat. But I think
for me that's on brand.
Yeah, for me, I think the 3-0 defeat just reflected my inner turmoil and depression after that insipid performance against West Ham at the weekend. So look, yeah, okay. I joined at half time. I was tutoring until half time, and I'm basing my reaction to the performance from half time onwards. So I think it's only fair that you let us know what your take was on the first half. Start with the team news. What changes did he make for the team news?
Jorginho in, Partey on the bench.
And how did that? You were quite okay with that as a starting lineup. I was a little bit. I expressed concern over Nwaneri starting.
Well,
just because of his age and muscles.
Of course, and that is going to be a factor. But I think, given the state of the squad at the minute, with the injuries that it's got, that team sort of picks itself in a sense of putting your best team out. There is absolutely an argument that, in light of recent results, that maybe PSV next week on Tuesday could be argued as slightly more important. And like you say, there are a few players that are clearly or in the red because we don't have the comfort of being able to make even more changes. So Nwaneri's one. I think Rice is out on his feet, to be honest. I'm not sure he had...
Played the full game, didn't he?
Played the full game. I'm not sure he had his best game either. And so, Timber's another one. I know White's coming back, but clearly, as much as Arteta says White is ready to play, they're not going to just throw him in from the start, hence him coming on with, 10 minutes to go or something?
No, he had even less. It was like
was it less?
86 or something minutes. I mean, I would have liked him to have had longer than that, to be fair. He came on in the 86th minute against West Ham, but with like 10 minutes of added time in that game, so he had about 15 minutes there. He came on
just when it comes to
85th minute. Sorry,
watching the first half, I kept trying to tell myself, don't criticise the lineup too much because it is what it is. There's not a huge amount of changes we can make, and I sort of get that, but I couldn't help just looking at it and thinking, well, I don't know what the plan is. And it was the starting lineup coupled with how we approached the first half. Now, I'm going to say all this, and it's going to sound very negative. And I even posted out online on Blue Sky while the first half was going on that I know I'm looking at this game through the filter of what happened against West Ham. So I can't help but see things really negatively. So there are a couple of things. One, knowing the opposition. Forest, their blueprint all season, defending numbers, hit really quick and direct on the counter. So, definite question marks across all the Arsenal podcast landscape about Calafiori starting this game. Because his turn of speed is not great and can get beat one-on-one. And so the first half demonstrated that perfectly. 1 minute, he's beaten and is nearly giving away a penalty. The next minute, he's in the opposition box, turning the player, taking a shot and hitting the post. And I really thought it was going in. He is an enigma of a player because he's playing better as a winger and as a forward than he is a defender. But he's been picked as a defender. And so I couldn't really understand. I thought then, well, he must be under instruction to take up such advanced positions to kind of, create that overload. If we know that Forest are going to defend in numbers, then we need to create overloads in that area of the pitch. I get that. That's fine. So Gabriel was stepping forward. Calafiori was obviously stepping forward. Nwaneri and Trossard were doing that thing
Timber.
where they go really, really wide to create and stretch the pitch. Okay, again, not necessarily a problem with that. The problem is then, well, what if you do lose the ball and Forest go direct? Because all of a sudden now you've changed Jorginho for Partey. Those are your legs in midfield. Look, Jorginho can sit at the the base of the horseshoe of death and knit some passes together. That's fine. But if we lose possession, he's going to get beat on the turn as well. So I don't. Look, it's a rock and a hard place for Arteta, knowing the opposition, and Forest are a good opposition, and we know that. But I don't know it. And despite all that, everything just seemed really slow. You know, if someone got the ball, it was too many touches, or it was a pass too far, or if they crossed it, it was kind of hopeful. There was even the crosses were slow. Like the balls over the top were slow. Everything just seemed really slow, and it was a little bit frustrating. But ultimately, it was because we had to respect Forest. You know, knowing where we're at, and so.
I'm understanding a little bit more now the exchange that we had at the start of the second half,
Yes.
which I'll explain in a second. Just a question then: was Calafiori hooked at half time tactically, a tactical decision, or was he injured?
It was more the fact because the ref went quite quickly on his cards. He gave Calafiori a yellow card. Now, I think it was a perfectly fine yellow card because Calafiori's just literally dragged the player back because, again, he was beaten on the turn. He's gone to commit, but because his turn of speed, you know, I'm sure when he's running in a straight line and he's up to top speed, he's not overly slow, but just on the turn, when the player, whoever it was on that side, would it have been Ilanga, I think, on that side? Yeah, just a quick ball inside and he's beaten, so Calafiori pulls him back. It's a yellow card. And so he's on...
Third minute.
Third minute, and he's got a long way to go. He made the half, but the reason he made it through the half without the risk of a yellow card was because he basically played in their penalty box. It was so bizarre. Yeah, but yeah, I think it was more just hooked at half time for that.
I would have liked to have seen Ben White start the game at right back. I would have liked Sterling to have started the game in place of Nwaneri, just to save Nwaneri's legs. I think the PSV game is more important than tonight's game. And I think a battling 0-0 away at Forest for that team is not a bad result in isolation.
Yeah.
So at the start of the second half, I tuned in on 46 minutes. And for the next 10 minutes, what I saw was one team trying to win the game, dominant, urgency, two great chances, one on target, one just wide, creating opportunities. Yet it wasn't like free-flowing football because one team was defending with 10 men behind the ball and the other team was... But it wasn't the what did we call it? The curve of crapness, or the horseshoe of doing whatever it was he said last.
Arc of frustration.
Arc of frustration. I prefer curve of crapness. It wasn't that. It was different. The energy level seemed up, and I was like, Stef, what are you on about, mate? We're playing really well. This is so beyond what I was fearing and what I witnessed in the flesh on Saturday. I think my comment was, where the hell was this performance on Saturday? This was just on the first 10 minutes of the second half. And to be fair, the rest of the second half, it wasn't like... It was pretty 50-50. I mean, they had a couple of opportunities and we had a couple of opportunities, but we're quite clearly playing without a striker. Like,
well, that's the thing, isn't it?
It's so patently clear that... And it's shockingly frustrating watching it. So, how do you feel now about the first 10 minutes of the second half?
Well, I don't feel different. I saw it differently. No, this is different. Okay, I did feel it different. Excuse me. But I just couldn't. I don't know. I couldn't warm to it maybe as much because of the first half and ultimately, you know, essentially they got to kick up the arse at half time to up the tempo and try and do things a little bit differently. I was getting a little bit frustrated with that thing where a player would get the ball and someone would run to sort of towards the byline and they do that little scoop pass. Because again, that's fine, it's very inventive, but it's slow. You know, the scoop gives the defence, and again, that they were packing that defence, that's what they do. It's easier for them to deal with. And I think all I was responding with that, yeah, for all the huff and puff, it amounted to a couple of okay chances. Tierney header just past the post. Mourinho forced a save from Sells, and I get that, but just looking at the stats, it still wasn't peppering the goal. It still wasn't even taking risks from further out, and I don't know. It just seemed to suit a team digging in.
Do you know there was one incident in the second half which just kind of spoke volumes about the lack of confidence in the squad.
Yes. Yeah.
And that was when Zinchenko was... I know he was offside, so it wouldn't have counted, but we didn't know that at the time. The flag went up late. When he went through, I can't remember who played him through, and I was like, shoot!
Yeah.
And instead of shooting...
Pulled it back.
He pulled it back to Erdegaard, who had, I think, 3 Forest players bearing down on him, close proximity. He still managed to get the shot away, and the keeper made actually a really good save from his follow-up shot. But I was just like, why on earth is Zinchenko cutting that back?
And
it's because he hasn't got the confidence to. He's not brave enough to take on.
It's not their game. Like you said, we are so patently missing forwards. The forwards we do have are not in form. Because Trossard, to me, had another completely anonymous game. Sterling, who came on as just in this crisis of confidence. Waneri's a 17-year-old kid who is ultimately probably playing at his limit, literally sending home at the weekend, let him play PlayStation or do whatever 17-year-olds do, and then, fire him up ready for the PSV game. And then you're playing Mourinho, who, for all his effort, you can't fault his effort, not a striker. And I just kept thinking that throughout the game, as disappointed as I am, and as bad as I might feel, I can't get angry because we're just missing so many good quality players. And maybe if I had any kind of anger, it's directed at the club for not reinforcing the bigger picture stuff. But in terms of the team, look, they're putting in the effort, but they don't have the instincts for goal, like you say. Zinchenko, his first thought there is to where can I set up, where can I move it on to? Because it's not his game. They should be, because actually, what's the worst that can happen? Keeper saves it, goes over, or it might go in.
It was very similar to the Erdegaard goal against someone I can't remember now, where Havertz squared the ball to him. And Havertz, a very similar position to the one Zinchenko found himself in there. But actually, Erdegaard then had a free hit at goal. It was a better setup. But Havertz, as your striker, you really want him to be taking that chance on.
But even then, let's face it, Havertz is not himself a proper striker. We talk about him as such because he's kind of been fashioned into this role, but we know he's not really. The thing, I just had a thought that it reminded me of something. One thing I was thinking about was it was Rice's chance against West Ham last week. When he sort of got slipped through, and then it was almost. I watched that chance again when we were not really creating much against Forest. I looked at that chance again, and it's like he doesn't know what to do. Because again, it's his instinct that's not his game, and it's just we're having to put square pegs in round holes, and the frustrating thing is that I feel like it could be like this for a few weeks yet.
Well, yes, I mean we've got 2 games against PSV, and then we've got Chelsea home, United away. After that, it's the international break, isn't it? And then I think our first game back is on the 1st of April. Is it Fulham at home or something like that?
Yeah, midweek. It's United first before Chelsea, but yeah.
United first, right. Okay. So that's Martinelli time back then, isn't he?
Could be.
That's what we think. And we think Saka might be back for the 1st of April as well. I mean, that's still another 5 weeks from now or so on. But... And the team does look a lot different then when you've got Martinelli and Saka in it. But is Martinelli's one of these players who's kind of improved in his absence? Because we were frustrated with him all season and last season.
Yes, but now again, I'm going to do what I sort of criticise other people for doing, but comparing him to what we had the option of this evening. He gives us something that Trossard certainly doesn't have.
Yes,
God,
of course.
Yeah. And Waneri, I don't know. I just, as much as he did a job out wide in a couple of games, I think he's so much better operating inside. And that was the thing about other games. You know, the one game where it sort of worked for a moment was the Leicester game, but actually that blueprint was inverted. You know, we didn't start with Marino, and you do wonder. You know, play those small, tricky runners at the start and see what they create, and then bring Marino on later for a little bit of chaos ball. And maybe that was the blueprint. You know, maybe we didn't discover that Marino was a forward. What we discovered that he's a good option from the bench. Who knows?
Yeah, he's a genuine goal threat from the bench, but starting a game, not so much. A bit like Trossard. You know, most of Trossard's goals have come off the bench. Unfortunately, we haven't got any players to demote them to the bench at the moment. So just looking at the other games that were on tonight, because they did have a bearing on. Well, they had a bearing on us, sort of. Liverpool. It's game on the BBC anyway. It's not over yet, but they're 2-0 up, so they're winning that game against Newcastle. And if we can see a scenario where Newcastle don't qualify for the Champions League, that can only help us in our pursuit of Isak, who didn't play today. So again, Liverpool having all the luck with key players, like play Man City without Haaland, play Newcastle without Isak. Well, yes, please. Oh no, not you. No, you've got to play them with those them with those players. But no, Liverpool get away with it. Man City won 1-0 at Spurs. Probably we could have done with Spurs getting a result there. United came. Well, we don't care about United. And in terms of the league table, well, I mean, we are sitting quite isolated in second place. We're currently 6 points ahead of Forest, which is why it was really important that we didn't lose tonight, just to kind of keep them, over 2 games. We've got a 2-game plus cushion there because our goal difference is a lot better than theirs. Man City are only a point further back, so they're only 7 points behind us. Again, with 11 games to go, 7 points, still a huge gap. How many games do we need to win to kind of keep them behind us? Chelsea in 5th would be the team to look out for, and so we're 8 points clear of Chelsea. Obviously, with the opportunity to beat them in a couple of weeks or lose to them. So
where are the goals going to come from?
Well, yeah, I don't know. I can't help you. But that's us now, isn't it? That's the nature of our season. It's not looking at the Liverpool result. It's looking at who's over our shoulder, who's behind us, which is a crushing frustration and a crushing shame. It's FA Cup weekend this weekend, isn't it?
Yes, so we do get the weekend.
So we've got a weekend free. So I think we'll have a little chat. We'll do a little podcast where we take a snapshot, the temperature of where we're at the moment in terms of, like, what do we do now? How do we view this season?
You make it sound like a counselling session.
It is for me. I've spent hours planning it. It's cathartic. As opposed to 0 time planning this podcast, because it was a 0-0
to talk about as well.
No, it was a 0-0 draw away at Forest, and again, I think that's a decent result. Liverpool drew there a couple of weeks ago, and I think we limited. I don't know what the XGs were in the end, but
low.
I think we limited Forest. I mean, Raya made one good save. I've just got one statistic that amused me, and I say amused in inverted commas, about the West Ham game. In our post-match stats or in-game stats, Raya was our fastest player on the pitch in the entire game. If you want a statistic...
Was that when he chased off and
he ran
chased
back
the ball halfway? Well,
there you go.
So that goes back to what I said. Slow. Everything's slow. Everything's too slow. And I know these players are running on empty, but from the start, really? And surely are we I assume, I mean, I'm not an expert on these things, but we should have lightened off training. maybe adjusted things that way so that we reserve our energy levels.
That is a criticism I've heard levelled at Arteta, that his training sessions are still are quite intense for this time with the workload of games. Now, I don't know, that might not be true. I have heard people say, LeGrove on Twitter certainly comments on that quite a lot. Even the Dubai, I think his argument is, how on earth does your striker pick up a season-ending muscle injury in a kind of warm weather, relaxing?
Yeah, it should be a jolly, shouldn't it?
Yeah, it's there might be something in that. So look, anything else to say about tonight's game?
No. I mean, I don't know. There's just, like you say, 4 points off Forest to a third. We'll considering where we're at with our
6
choices.
6 points.
What do you mean?
We're 6 points clear.
No, but we've got 4 points off
in
Forest
the head-to-head.
this season.
In the head-to-head, yeah. Right, gotcha. Sorry.
God, beating them 3-0 at home. It was
the highlight of the season.
That was a day, wasn't it? Yeah, that was good.
that was
Ranieri's first goal, wasn't it? I think in that fixture.
The good old days.
Yeah, the good old days where we could just bring him on for 5 minutes just for the lols. Yeah. Okay. Well. Yeah.
I've got nothing to contribute to this now, so I think we leave it. I think we'll leave it there. We will reconvene on Friday, Saturday. So look out for that podcast where we will kind of assess where we're at the moment in terms of the season. Who are we blaming for this season's capitulation? Oh, it's going to be a fun one.
God, here we go.
Anyway, listen, thanks for the chat. I hope the cough gets better.
Thanks.
And enjoy the next few days wherever you guys are. Be safe and catch up with us at the weekend. Cheerio. Bye-bye.
See ya.
The North Bank, an Arsenal podcast. Subscribe, rate and review on your app, and find us on Twitter, Instagram and TikTok at North Bank Pod. Email hello@thenorthbankafc.com and check out our website, thenorthbankafc.com. Produced by The Podcast Company.